Good whenever you are.
All right, I'd like to call to order the March 16, 2021 meeting of the West Palm Beach Planning Board. Madam Clerk, if you please call the roll.
Stephen Mayes,
Present.
Peter Pifko,
Present.
Deborah Ring,
Present.
Andres Paradello. Let the record reflect that Andres Paradello is not present. Mark Pateman,
Present.
John Hicksonbaugh. Let the record reflect that John Hicksonbaugh is not present.
Thank you. Ms. White, would you please read aloud the COVID-19 protocols that we are following?
Pursuant to Mayor Keith A. James's Executive Order Number 2020-05, issued on April 2nd, 2020, the City of West Palm Beach's boards and committees are conducting meetings through media technology and have released the requirements to have a quorum of its members physically present at City Hall. On April 14, 2020, Mayor Keith A. James has issued Executive Order Number 2020-09, which specifically provides the rules of procedure for conducting city meetings, including requirements for quasi-judicial hearings. To ensure the ability for the public to continue to participate in this hearing, it is being streamed live and available for viewing in the City Commission chambers located at City Center, 401 Clematis Street, on the condition that social distancing be practiced. Additionally, for those wishing to access the meeting remotely, they are able to do so directly through the applicable Zoom webinar link, as well as the city's usual media channels, including WPB-TV 18, the city's website, and the city's YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter feeds. Anyone from the public who would like to provide comment on an agenda item is able to do so through the following. Number 1, in the City Center Flagler Gallery. Number 2, dialing 561-320-6451 and leaving a voicemail not to exceed 3 minutes. Number 3, sending an email or video recording to pbpubliccomment@wpb.org, or number 4, completing the online public comment form at www.wpb.org/public comments. Those accessing the meeting directly through Zoom may also use the Q&A or raise hand features. Regardless of method, please be sure to indicate the agenda number or case number for which you are providing comment. Everyone providing testimony must have video capability and will need to be sworn in. The swearing in will occur at the start of each case on the agenda. If you're about to provide testimony and were not sworn in, please be sure to indicate such and be sworn in before offering your testimony. After the applicant presents their case, staff will provide a presentation, and then the public will have an opportunity to speak or have their comments read into the record from previously received correspondence. The board will then go into executive session. Prior to rendering a decision, the board will confirm no additional public comments have been received by staff. And finally, for the members of the board, it is emphasized that Florida sunshine laws are applicable and you may not use the chat feature or any other form of individual communication to discuss matters with other board members, the applicant, or the general public during the meeting.
Thank you, Ms. White. Next order of business is approval of the February 16, 2021 minutes. Has everyone had the opportunity to review them? And if so, I'm looking for a motion.
Approval of the minutes, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion. Have we a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next on our agenda is the report of the planning staff.
Good evening, Chairman and board members. Angela Van, Planning and Zoning Administrator. There are no cases that's been approved by the City Commission since your last planning board meeting. So staff has no report for this time. Just remember that Mr. Chair, I don't know if you knew that Scott Hoax actually resigned
I
from the
was just
board.
getting to that on my remarks to the chairperson, but thank you.
Okay.
Yes, which moves next on the agenda, and again, I'm the bearer of unhappy news. We lost yet another member of our board, and for the same reason. He
Many.
moved outside the city limits. No, we're going to get to local brokers here. Tell them there's some wonderful housing in West Palm Beach. They don't need to leave. Ours is under the laws that govern this board. Only electors of West Palm Beach may serve. We're so sorry that Scott's leaving us. On behalf of the board, I want to thank him for his past service. We appreciate his contributions and, of course, wish him well. He will be missed. That then brings us to the declaration of ex parte communications. And let me begin by saying, other than the material that staff has furnished to us, Mr. Thomas, I don't know if that counts as ex parte communications because it really came through the staff and it's part of the record already.
Right.
But I just make note of that. We received several pieces of information. Other than that, which applies to all of us, does anyone else have anything to disclose? All right. Next on our agenda are continued cases, of which there are none, and that will bring us then to Planning Board case number 1624FF. And Mr.
Mr.
Roach, do
Chair.
we have everyone here who's
Just give me 1 minute and I will bring
Take your
everybody in. Okay, that should be everybody.
all right. Let me ask the presenters, is everyone here who you wish to be here before we get started?
Yeah, everybody's in, just need
Okay.
to be sworn in.
Okay. For all those who plan to speak or offer testimony, if you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be truthful?
I
Do.
Thank you. I guess we'll hear first from the applicant. Is that going to be Joni Brinkman?
Yes.
Ms. Brinkman, if you'll proceed, please.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, board members. I want to thank you for the opportunity to present this to you tonight. I do want to introduce the people on the screen to you. We have with us Larry Zabik, who is the project rep for Banyan Cay Resort and Golf. Dominic Gatto, who is ownership on behalf of Banyan Cay. Dan Carter, who is our landscape architect. George Fletcher, who is our architect of record, and Alicia Lewis, who is the representative of the CDD as well. I guess, can I share my screen now? Okay, I just think I can move it over. Can you see this? Wait,
We can.
you can, okay.
Yes.
I'm gonna be looking this way, so, okay. On behalf of Banyan Cay, we're here before you tonight to request some revisions to the design guidelines associated with the Banyan Cay development. The requests are included in your staff report at this time. We are showing on this slide, something is not right here. That's not my screen.
Okay.
Here's my screen. Whoop. Oh, move this back over. Okay, so you can see this, right?
We can.
Okay. Okay.
Now it moved to a different window. Now we're seeing scheduling made easy.
Joni, if you minimize this, then go back to your presentation and hit slideshow from beginning.
Okay, sorry. Now you can see it again?
We can. He suggests if you hit slideshow,
Yep.
it will it'll run better. Is that right?
I think
Yeah.
it'll run on a different
Got it.
monitor, that's why.
Okay, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, we're here before you tonight, sorry about that,
Mhm.
to request a major amendment, I'm gonna move this out of the way, to the Banyan K residential plan development / commercial plan development.
I think you're on your
Modif-
fourth screen. Is that what you wish? That's all. According to your left, you're on the fourth screen that we're seeing. Is that what you want? That's fine.
As long
This
as
is
you can see
project
it.
history, that's what we're seeing on our screen.
No, it should not be.
Is that what everyone else is seeing?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
minimize this to see the up in the upper right, the single line.
Joni, do you have two
Minimize-
monitors?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
Your presentation is on the monitor that you're not sharing, I think.
Okay, hold on. Let me open it from this one
you are good, John.
then.
He
I am not.
started out a neophyte, and now he's like.
If you do
expert
new share, you
extraordinary.
should be able to choose your other monitor.
Okay.
Give up your day job, John.
I know, he's good.
Okay, can you see that?
Now we can, yes.
Perfect.
And, yeah, go ahead.
Now, can you click on slideshow?
I
and
am,
see- Okay,
but can you see it now, the
So
slideshow?
you're sharing your other monitor though.
Okay. How'd I do that, John?
If you want
Is
to,
it
just
now?
leave it like this and you can just
Okay,
go
it'll
from
work.
one slide to the next.
It'll work. Okay. So I can read it. Okay, we already went through the first slide, so, okay. For those of you who are not familiar with this project is a plan development consisting of both the CPD and the RPD in the former lands of the President's North Golf Course. This is the general location. They're going to have access from Congress Avenue to both the hotel resort property, as well as the 94 residential lots on the north. And this is situated again in the lands of the Presidents. For those of you who are not here in 2013, I wanted to give a brief presentation on the history associated with the project. Back in July of 2013, a former owner initiated the land use and zoning approvals to approve the design guidelines for the President Country Club, RPD CPD. In January of 2014, the city approved a major amendment and a major subdivision that allowed for the 94 lots in Pod A to have waivers associated with them. Those are the single family lots at the north end. And then in March of 2015, the city approved a major amendment to the RPD CPD to change the name of the project to Sea Palm Resort, extend the build out date, change the mix of uses, revise the pod boundaries, and increase the height of the hotel. All these requests were made by the previous owner of the development. Then in April of 2017, after the purchase by Banyan K, the city approved another major amendment to change the name of the development to Banyan K. That changed the residential project from 0 lot line to single family in that north pod, amended signage, and also included the golf course as a permitted use. Then finally, in November of 2017, the city affixed consistent land use and zoning on a small acre of land, 0.37 acres that was inadvertently left out of the CPD under the previous owner's approval process. These requests were made by the current owner of the development.
Joni, before you get in, you're still not sharing, your slides aren't moving forward. Do you just want me to share your presentation?
They move forward now?
Yes, now we can see them moving.
Okay, got it. Okay, I just went through the history. This wanted to give you an idea of the new partners that are involved in the Banyan K Resort with the golf partners. Hyatt has now been brought on as the signature hotel flagship, destination hotel within the development. IMI has been brought on in regards to real estate. Benchmark, who is a well-known hotel operator, will be the operator of the resort hotel. Jack Nicklaus, of course, as everyone is aware, as well as Callaway Golf, were involved in the redesign of the recently completed golf course. And Jacob is also now not only the general contractor, but also a partner within the development. To give you an idea of the progress of Banyan K over time, again, it was acquired by the current owners in 2015. The Jack Nicklaus Golf Course was completed in 2017. The clubhouse and restaurant were completed in 2019. The goal right now of the development team and ownership is to have the hotel and parking lot open and CO'd by the end of this year. As an overview for the entire development, besides the 94 lots that I've been speaking about that are in the north end, the resort area includes not only a 150-key boutique hotel, the clubhouse and golf club, and the golf course. It also includes the resort pool and waterside bar and structured parking, which is associated with the resort hotel, and 22 resort villas, 52 estate homes, and the tennis center, which will be processing a minor amendment to allow that to be utilized as a temporary sales center. And then the dark area in the center of the screen is the future pad for the 179 unit condominium building. That is actually where the prior clubhouse was located. Before you tonight is the request to amend the design guidelines, and included in your package includes this language. We were originally proposing to delete some additional language, but I'll get into later our agreement with staff to address some of their concerns. However, the last sentence there is what we are proposing to strike. Actually, is that the last sentence will read, additionally, shade structures shall be provided on the upper deck to screen all perimeter parking spaces on the top level of the garage. This gives you an idea from a graphic standpoint of the area we're proposing to screen. This shows you all the parking spaces on the perimeter of the garage that will be screened by a sail type structure. And this area shows the screening on the other side of the maintenance, the chiller area. I wanted to talk a little bit about outreach. In addition to what I'm going to talk about tonight, we did send over to John earlier this afternoon some petitions and an additional letter that we obtained from the Lincoln. There are about 41 signatures all in total from various buildings within the community, such as the Lincoln, the Envoy, the Parliament, Consulate, Senate building, and as well as a couple of single-family homes and presidential estates, and the Banyan Trails, the 94 lots. Banyan ownership, before we submitted this application, wanted to make sure they had the support of the community before they went to the effort it takes and the costs associated with presenting a request before the city council. Banyan K had the following meetings to gain consensus from the PWA before that. November 11th, Dominic Gatto met with board members Glenn Smith and Paul Malling and manager Howard Rosenkrantz, who oversee the PWA. And then in December of 2020, they presented the request as well as a PowerPoint presentation to the PW board. Attendees at that meeting included the Envoy, the Lincoln, Condo 5, Embassy Place, Jefferson, Parliament, Parliament Villas, Senate B, Consulate, and they did receive support. This should be included in your backup packet is the letter from the PWA indicating that they are supporting the design as was presented, which included shade structures around only the perimeter of the parking deck. Subsequent to that, on March 12th, Alicia Lewis and I met with representatives of the Lincoln, the condominium, which is in the closest proximity to the parking structure, which is the subject of the request. And we were presented again with another letter of support from them to provide the sale structures only around the perimeter of the parking deck. And for the board members, as a refresher for the history of the project, this was what is currently included in the design guidelines. It shows trellises around the perimeter parking spaces. We're now proposing as shade structures. It shows the circulation area open, and then trellises and some solid covering over the interior spaces. It also showed the proposed landscape around the outside of the structure. Again, what we're proposing now shows the perimeter being covered and the interior space open. Unfortunately, as things go on, we've had a lot of, as I mentioned earlier, this process started in 2013. When Banyan K came on in 2015, we had a development team that was fully intending to move forward in an expedited process. Things happened, COVID happened. There's been impact to the hospitality industry overall. And this request was not considered lightly by the ownership of Banyan K before moving forward with it. They feel it's imperative in order to create a sustainable and a project that arrives on time. We're concerned, everyone's concerned, everyone wants the construction to be completed at Banyan K. So not only the users of the hotel and the golf club, but also of the lands of the presidents can start to enjoy the resort hotel as well. Now, as I mentioned, staff is recommending conditions. They have reviewed the request and the property development regulations in section 9432 and the criteria, and they have determined that we meet all regulations in the code. However, they are proposing revisions to the design guidelines. The first one to maintain the 10-foot height limitation above the finished grade for the parking deck, which we are in agreement with. We will work with staff between Planning Board and City Commission to reinstate that language that was previously included in and currently included in the design guidelines. The second is to require that shade structures to be provided over all parking spaces on the upper deck of the garage and not just the perimeter rows of parking. And we'll get into that in a little bit more discussion in a moment. And the third, to add language requiring that the shade structure be in place at all times and be maintained in good condition. Again, we're in agreement with two of those conditions, the first and the third one. The first being that we will reinstate the 10-foot limitation, and the second about the structure being maintained. I did speak with John, and there will be some tweaking to that language to make sure that if there's a storm event coming, that management will be able to remove the shades for a period of time, but then also be required to reinstall the shades within a specific period of time after the storm event has passed. We are not in agreement with the request to shade all the parking spaces on the deck. That specific requirement or request to staff is what we were asking for. And in ownership's assessment, it's imperative that we get that approved. In regards to justification, I did take a look at the zoning code. There's no actual code requirement that we screen the top of the garage. We understand there was a lot of discussion with the prior owner and even with Banyan K during the recent 2 amendments in that regard. That is why we reached out initially to the PWA to make sure we were going to have their support before we made this submittal. But in reviewing the code, while it's not required, there is areas in the downtown that this is applicable to, and it requires that 30% of the top deck be screened, and it does allow that canvas structures be permitted to provide that screening requirement. In this case, on that top deck of the parking structure, which by the way is recessed into the ground, so the lower level is actually you drive down into the first level. In this case, 65 of the 107 spaces on the deck are proposed to be screened, which is approximately 60% of those spaces on the top deck. In regards to the total area of the deck, We scaled that off today, not counting the stairwells, but the actual deck. It equates to a little less than 37,000 square feet. And we are proposing to cover a little more than 12,500 square feet, which is 34% being proposed. Although it's not in the downtown, this does not exceed the requirement in that code, which was created to reduce impacts to the surrounding higher residential buildings. Additionally, since the purchase by Banyan K, both the project architect and the whole hotel brand have been replaced. Now with Hyatt Hotels and Adashi architecture is now being brought on board. And not unlike other development projects, things change over time, costs increase. The ability to remove just the center screening and still provide the perimeter will allow this project to be moved forward in an expedited manner. Banyan K ownership has recently brought on additional financial partners, so they are in a time crunch and they have commitments on what they have to do to get towards that December date. Again, the request is supported by the overall PWA board and the board of the Lincoln, which is the closest condominium to the parking deck. And we meet all the zoning regulations for staff's assessment of the request. Wanted to show you a little bit of video, pictures of what the hotel looks like today. This is a little bit older of a picture, but you can see that the windows are starting to be installed in the hotel here, and the main focal point of the parking deck is constructed. I went out there Sunday and took these pictures. You can see additional installation and moving forward with the hotel structure. And the stone veneer has been placed on the focal point at the entry to the parking structure. So it looks really nice. On this one, on the second picture, you can actually see the existing golf club in the background. This gives you another view of the stone veneer on the entry and the height of the shade structures that'll be on the top. And then also a better view of the golf club. So what we're requesting is the planning board's consideration of the major amendment to amend the design guidelines. We're requesting that the inclusion of staff conditions 1.1.1 and 1.1.3, but a recommendation to delete 1.1.2 to move forward to the city commission. Again, the project meets all the city's zoning regulations in that regard. That actually ends the presentation I had for tonight. Again, all of our team members are here available for comments. And if there are any questions, I would like to be able to address them after public comment and address any of the questions from the board. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions of the applicant at this point?
I have one.
Go ahead.
Joni, what percentage of that upper level is going to be utilized for parking? I mean, are you assuming the garage is going to be 100% occupied 100% of the time?
No, we're not. And actually I had Alicia, I know, is on the call. We had discussions, Alicia and I did, about that too, about that the goal would also be for it's valet parking only. And that if the valets are parking, obviously they would want to park under the shade structures first and utilize the uncovered structures last. So that is the way we believe that will function. I didn't actually do any assessment as to an anticipated utilization of the top deck.
Okay. My second question is, could you go back to any of your site plans and show us the relationship of the Envoy condo building to the parking structure?
Oh, okay. Actually, I think I have it. Okay. Actually, I do have an aerial I hadn't shown. This shows the Envoy. You can't really see the parking deck from here. This might give you a better idea too. The Envoy's over on the left-hand side of the screen. This is the Lincoln condo. It is the closest, and let me just give you, this will help out. Okay, so you can see the Lincoln on this. It's to the right of the parking deck. You can't actually see the Envoy on this one. I did scale that off today via the measurement tool on the property appraiser's office. And I came up with Envoy being about 560 feet away and the Lincoln being about 320.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions of the applicant? And if not, I have a question or two. Did I understand your primary reasons being one of timing to get construction completed and one of cost?
Correct.
Let me tell you my concern, because I was serving on the board when you guys first came in and when this project was proposed. And at the time, there was some real resistance to it. And part of your big selling point was that the people in these condominiums wouldn't have to look down and see the cars. So this structure or this screening that you're asking us to remove was a big part of your selling point when you were last before us. And the only reasons I'm hearing are for the financial or timing benefits of the developer. We've already received some comments from the public who are concerned about looking down on the structure. I could see this discussion if you were first coming before us, but you bargained that to get some concessions from this board. We gave those concessions, and part of what you gave, you're now asking to be removed. And I have an issue with that.
I understand your concern. That is why ownership did reach out to the PWA first. We knew this would be a sensitive issue.
No, but with respect, the fact that you're reaching out to do it, it's like you're reneging on part of your deal with your adjoining owners. I certainly would be open to hearing if there's a more cost-effective or quicker way to achieve some of those results. That's one thing. But when you come before us and negotiate, or actually through the staff and then with us, concessions that we might not have otherwise given, but for the promise of this structure that now you're asking to be removed, and only for the financial or timing benefits of the developer, seems to fall short from my perspective. Am I missing something here?
The only, I don't know if Dominic wants to comment on this, but my understanding is that I'm not sugarcoating it. There is a cost issue associated with this. But unlike some projects, we have also transitioned to new development and ownership teams. So some things are coming to light now that weren't necessarily recognized earlier. And all I can reiterate is that they did not take this lightly, which is why they reached out to the HOAs first before making the submittal.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Brinkman. Do we hear from staff now? Who's going to be handling this?
That would be me.
Okay, sir. And if you don't like what you're hearing, you could just cut other people off. You've got that
I
power.
can mute
You're like
myself.
the ultimate chair.
All right, I'm going to share my PowerPoint just 1 second.
Hello?
All right, can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes, we can.
All right. So
Am I allowed to, I don't mean to interrupt, but am I allowed to answer Steve's question about?
Yeah, you have some rebuttal time, but if you want to address it now, I'm fine. If you're okay with that, John, to let him.
sure.
Okay. Yes, I'd like to hear your answer.
Yes, sir. First of all, the pergola it's very extensive and it's like a superstructure that was proposed. That was proposed prior to me, the Banyan K team being the owner. That was a conversation that took place between the previous owner and the PWA is how that started. If you go back to Joni's slide on slide 19, you saw a graphic that said something about 40 some odd parking spaces of 100 that were going to be exposed. Please keep in consideration that that's a double-decker parking deck for the entire property.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a substructure underneath that is completely covered. So the majority of the project that we have is covered. if you go back to the slide that Joni showed of the envoy, where we have 2 or 3 people making this request, these folks have had a tremendous benefit. All of the land of the presidents has had a tremendous financial benefit with this project moving forward. They have a tremendous deficit on their hands if this project does not move forward. That pergola system is extremely expensive, far more than $1 million. And that was approved to the prior ownership, and it was enforced or encouraged by the previous operator that is no longer with the project. These folks spent money with no regard to accommodate 4 or 5 people in the envoy that are not even members of Banyan K. But their homes and their condos have increased significantly in value because of the project.
But Mr. Gatto, when you purchased this property, you were aware of this requirement at the time you purchased it.
Yes, sir, I was. But what I was not aware
that was
of was
part of the deal, and maybe you were not involved at the time when they used that commitment to get other concessions that may have made this project far more financially viable. So
Yes,
you're renegotiating the deal after it's made, saying, but they all benefit from it. I'm not insensitive to that, but please understand, if the situation were reversed and the city were coming back to you now and saying, you know, some of those concessions you gave to have this project go forward, we need to take some of them back, you would be justifiably unhappy about that. And I'm just trying to understand how this is different.
Yes, sir. So one of the main catalysts for us making this request is because of the we needed to choose a brand to make sure that this hotel came to life. We chose Hyatt. Hyatt being one of the big 3 gorillas in our industry for hospitality. They were so against the pergola over the center because if it obstructed all of the hotel rooms. Why would I want to obstruct 4 floors of hotel rooms or 3 floors of hotel rooms?
Mr. Gatto, we did not come up with this project. Your predecessor.
I understand, sir, but
Now
the request is overwhelmingly irresponsible financially.
Well,
So you know, again, our alternative is not
I appreciate
good.
your comments, sir.
Yeah.
Let's hear from staff, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Yes,
John, why don't you proceed?
Okay, thank you. For the record, John Roach, Principal Planner for the city. So first, since it's stemming all around staff's condition as to the fact that covering should occur in the center, I want to emphasize the staff's condition was not referring to the pergola being put back into the center, but that some type of shade structure, it could be the sails or what have you, which I understand is more cost effective and so forth, that those could be also carried forward into the center portion of the garage. But aside from that, I really want to emphasize on the history, which I think, you know, Mr. Mayans has been talking about. At the time in which the site plan approval for the resort hotel and its parking was approved, there was extensive discussion, as everyone has talked about. And that's been the design of the parking garage, how it would be integrated into the overall project, and what strategies would be used to shield the view of the cars. Ultimately, there was discussion of shade and flowering trees along the perimeter, which that portion's been modified. Pergolas would be installed along the outside edge with vines and so forth incorporated in them. That has since been modified. And shade structures would be provided on the interior portions of the parking. And then also there would be landscaping in terms of potted plants and what have you throughout the upper level. Those conceptual design images that were originally approved at that time are what you see on your screen here. But then in 2017, under the current developer, they were approved for a modification, and there was discussion and concern at that time as well. They requested to have the shade structures and landscaping removed from the design guidelines, and that screening of the rooftop parking spaces be achieved with an open air trellis structure. This is actually something that they proposed and ultimately was incorporated into the design guidelines. But they wanted to remove any reference to landscaping on the interior. They wanted to remove language with regards to berming and elevated planter boxes and what have you. And staff presented concerns at that time as well. So it was negotiated. And that the current design, which you see on the screen, was approved, but there was requirements that landscaping be incorporated into the middle, along with the trellis or pergola that they had designed and proposed at that time in 2017. So these are what's in the design guidelines today. And instead of elevated planter boxes, they were going to berm up to the parking garage. This would put the height of the landscaping further up above the parking deck to help shade that. And one thing I want to emphasize is that this is unique in the sense that a surface parking lot would have landscape islands, shade trees, and what have you. Parking decks obviously don't. So following a lengthy stall in the construction of the projects, the developer did come to staff and express concerns with regards to the construction cost associated with the pergola that was previously approved. And they wanted to provide a more cost-effective alternative, and we understood that. Therefore, they're asking the board to consider and the commission to consider the sail structures along the perimeter, but that nothing be provided interior in terms of the garage, and that no landscaping be provided. As indicated previously, it was a lengthy debate. It was first approved in 2013. It was amended by the current developer in 2017, and discussions have happened that whole time. Like I said, it's unique in the sense that there's no landscape islands associated with the parking garage. There's no shade trees that are required. And this could potentially result in large surface areas of open parking. And that's the reason all of those conditions were put in there, to address the concerns of the adjacent high-rise buildings. It's the same reason that the design guidelines state that you can't have any flat roofs as part of the design of any of the structures, is because they were concerned that those flat roofs would become mechanical yards that you could see from the surrounding condos. So I'll skip forward to staff's approval with conditions. So we understood the time constraints, we understood the cost constraints, but we felt like it was still important to satisfy some of the concerns that had been expressed throughout this lengthy public hearing process that's occurred over the years. So we proposed that the shade structures that they were designed and showing on the perimeter parking could be carried forward. And if you saw in the pictures of the current construction, they've actually built the columns, which were portions of the previous pergola design and will have lighting on them, that staff believes could potentially be used to install the sail structures on those interior parking spaces. And there's been discussion, there was some comments within the applicant's presentation with regards to downtown. One thing I want to emphasize is that this subject property was originally a golf course. It's been open for decades. It was open space. One of the concerns, or there were a lot of concerns with changing this zoning designation of the subject property to a commercial designation, completely changing the character in which they had experienced for a number of years. And so there were a lot of design concessions as part of that, and covering the parking was one of those. And that's the reason the design guidelines were as explicit as they were, to making sure that those concerns were minimized. In addition, I talked about, some surface parking and what would normally come with surface parking. You would normally have shade trees. You would have landscape islands every 10 parking spaces. You would have, buffers with shade trees in them. So ultimately, you have that shading of the parking spaces that comes through that natural vegetation. And you don't end up with, the open lot. So we felt like it was important to respect the concerns that had come out of the public hearing process since 2013. Those public hearings were lengthy. They were grueling at times. So we feel like that those concerns were legitimate. We felt like it's important to continue to address those concerns. We understand that some of the current residents have expressed that they're okay with the alternative design, but we feel like that they could take this sail structure concept and carry it forward to those interior parking spaces at a relatively reasonable cost. We understand that the trellis is extensive, and that's not what we're proposing as part of our condition. So we feel like we can recommend approval, but subject to the conditions that were outlined in our staff report and you see on your screen here. So I did forward to you, as indicated early on, with regards to ex parte communication. Staff did receive a letter from the envoy objecting to this. This was following their participation in the PWA meeting, but they expressed some concerns about, what the design was proposing at this point. There were a couple emails that were received. One of them didn't necessarily deal with this. Staff is working to address that resident's concerns. And then today I received the petition from the applicant. That was at 4:30, so I haven't had a chance to go through that very well. And then also there was a letter from the Presidential Estates Association, which is on the other side of the resort hotel from the garage, but they were supporting it. So that communication was received. And just to answer Mr. Pivko's question with regards to the envoy, this is a little bit older version of the site plan, but shaded in, and I really provided a good emphasis as to where the locations of things were. So this parking right here next to the hotel, that's the garage that is before you this evening. The envoy is over here where my cursor is right now. And then the Lincoln is here between the tennis courts and the future multifamily. So that concludes staff's presentations. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions of staff? Go ahead, Peter.
John, could you clarify for me, considering the structure is up according to Johnny's presentation, what do you mean by the 10-foot height finish above grade? Is this relating back to the berming around the perimeter?
Yeah, and we were a little surprised by their original request to remove that language. Now, they have since agreed that they will keep that language in there. But yes, that language was put in there to ensure that the grade was bermed up next to the garage, and therefore the first level was technically sunken, below grade, and therefore only 10 feet to the parking deck would be above grade. And that would allow the shade trees and so forth to extend up above the height of the garage. But the applicant is agreeing to keep that language in there.
So do we still have to keep that as a condition?
I think if you were to move approval and agree with staff's conditions as listed, that comment with regards to 10 foot would remain in the design guidelines.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions of staff? And if not, would anyone, Mr. Roach, have we anyone from the public who wishes to be heard?
Yes, someone just raised their hand, Martin List. I will bring him into the meeting just 1 second. Okay, Marty, you're in. You'll just need to turn on your camera and unmute.
And we'll swear you in, Mr. List. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be truthful?
Yes. So my name is Martin List, and I'm president of the Presidential Estates Property Owners Association. Our association represents the 161 single-family homeowners who share over 2 miles of border with the Banyan Cay Resort. Our community was intimately involved in the negotiation process between the resort developer prior to Banyan Cay's involvement and the city to create and finalize the previously approved development design guidelines. We are not closed-minded to Banyan Cay's request to adjust the previous agreement to the restrictions delineated in the design guidelines. We also recognize that at least 50% of the existing surface parking within the lands of the president is unprotected. Banyan Cay Resort is now coming before the planning board with a request to modify just a single element of the approved guidelines, screening the upper parking deck. I have reviewed their request to change the scope of coverage and the material for screening the upper parking deck to allow them to install sunshades along the perimeter of the upper deck in lieu of pergolas or trellis structures. I've also looked at the architectural renderings for the proposed modification. We find that the proposed perimeter sunshades provide more than adequate screening of the parking deck from our community. We wholeheartedly support Banyan K's request to modify the design guidelines with regard to the upper parking deck screening. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Roach, anyone else from the public who wishes to be heard?
I do have one voicemail that was received that I need to play. Just give me 1 second.
Sure.
Okay.
Hi, we are owners of Lands of the President, and tonight there's a meeting, and I'm told we can leave our comments here. I am definitely in support of the changes of the design to replace the pergolas or trellis structures in the upper parking deck with sunshades along the perimeter of the area. So please, my name is Connie White, and I am in favor of that. Thank you so much. Bye.
All right, anyone else from the public who wishes to be heard?
Nobody else has identified their interest to make public comment, no.
Okay. Ms. Brinkman, you said you want to reserve some time to respond to the public comments?
Actually, I don't think I have anything else to add to public
Okay.
comment since they were in support.
Understood. All right, at this point, we'll bring it back to the board for discussion. I'm just going to go around the table and get people's view, and I'm going to start with Mark, who I haven't heard from tonight.
Yeah, Steve, I mean, I was not involved in the prior owner's development process, but this does, to me, it looks like you can figure out a way to use the sails to shade the center aisle. We're talking just now about the center aisle. The irony of all of this is that this is a completely auto-centric development, and we're doing everything we can to stop people to look at cars. So all this is driven because of the aesthetics of looking at vehicles, which you absolutely have to have if you're living in and around the Banyan K community. So that aside, I would say that I have no problem with anything that's before us. I would support staff's conditions, however, because I think they're going to play ball with the developer and trying to find a much lower cost way to screen those two center lanes on the top of the garage.
Thank you. Deborah, any thoughts and comments? You're not obliged to, but I give you the opportunity. Your mute's on. If you do have comments, they'll be easier to hear with the mute removed.
No, I think both groups have done an excellent job presenting this. I do believe that through negotiations, we can work out something amicable for both so that this shading can be accomplished. I do understand the residents' concern about having to look down on cars. So, again, I would just say maybe there can be some more negotiations where this can be worked out in an amicable way.
Thank you. Peter.
I don't have quite the depth of historical perspective that you do, Steve, but I do remember several meetings where the design of the parking structure was discussed in detail. And, I feel that the city has bent over several times to allow the developer, whichever one happens to be the flavor of the month, coming in and requesting changes. And I think it's time that we said, enough is enough, and this is what's reasonable for what's been approved before. And I don't have any issues with the staff recommendations 1 through 3.
Thank you. I'll have my own thoughts, and then we'll call it for a vote. I remembered that there was a lot of opposition to the change of use of this land, that people had said, look, we bought these condos with these beautiful views of land that's going to be ruined by these structures. Our view is going to be ruined. And there was a lot of negotiation back and forth, and this was a difficultly negotiated compromise where the developer could still have its structure, but the residents would have at least some protection for their view. I'm not unsympathetic to the concerns the applicant has raised. I think there's some ways we can reduce the costs and accelerate the timetable, but simply to use those reasons as an excuse to be freed of their obligation is not fair. It's certainly not fair to the condominium owners around the structure who accepted the compromise of the predecessors on the strength of a promise that I think we have an obligation to at least try to honor the spirit of it. And I think the spirit of it is to protect some of the view. I don't think an expensive structure is required to meet that spirit, so we can be flexible there, but simply to remove that obligation altogether without, at the same time, giving us something back the city gave away to allow this development to go forward is a very one-sided negotiation after the deal had been struck. So for myself, I would support the change, but with, very important to me, the conditions that the staff have laid out. I think that's the minimum we have to do. Those are my thoughts. At this point, if there's no further discussion, I'll look for a motion.
I'll move approval, Mr. Chairman, of Planning Board Case 1624 FF with the three conditions listed in the report, 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3.
Is there a second for the motion?
Second.
Is there any further discussion on the pending motion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Guerra, I saw you raise your hand. Your mute button's on. I'll work on this matter's concluded.
So again, we have 260 parking spaces. We're looking to uncover 40 of the 260. That's far from reneging on our obligation.
Mr. Gatto, at this point,
Yes.
these are discussions you need to have with staff. You had an application before us. We've now voted on it. It's only a recommendation. It's ultimately the city commission that make the final decision. So you have another opportunity to make your case. Our recommendation has been made. We're following the staff recommendation as well. So at this point, our work on this matter is concluded and we're moving on to our next case. Thank you, sir.
That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda is Planning Board Case Number 1736, 1736A, and 1736B.
Okay, Mr. Chair, everybody should be in for this case. Mr. McGinley will just need to turn on his camera and unmute.
We've learned it's a far more effective presentation, Mr. McGinley, if we can see and hear you. These are some of the tips we picked up with a year of using Zoom.
Just give me a cue. Hold on.
Sure.
You don't want to see me anyway. Oh, gosh.
There we go.
All right. Will you please, those who are giving testimony who have not been sworn in, if you could raise your right hand. Do you swear, sir, Mr. McKinley? Raise your hand. Okay. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be truthful?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. All right. Please proceed.
Thank you. The project I'm about to talk to you about couldn't be more in contrast with the one you just heard. Our property is,
Probably a smart strategic move on your part. Go ahead.
our part is 0.7 acres. It's already been developed. There are no changes to the existing site conditions. We're basically asking for three things for the property that's located at 4449 12th Street in unincorporated Palm Beach County. We're asking for annexation to the city and a comparable land use and zoning assignment to that property. The particular reason for the annexation, besides the fact that we have Peggy Adams Animal Rescue on three sides of our property and we're cut out to a tiny piece, which I'll get into shortly. It's in your staff report. It's the first page you can see in your staff report, the colored aerial. It shows the extent of our property. But the reason we're coming in is we had some code enforcement issues with Palm Beach County that we pursued through the Palm Beach County Planning, Zoning, and Building Department. And the linchpin to that was this 20-foot alley that is located between the Peggy Adams property and our property. And we constructed an awning. That awning was too close to our property line because of the alley. So we pursued the abandonment of that alleyway with Palm Beach County Engineering Department, only to find out after 4 months of applications, surveys, and everything else we gave them, that they concluded that the alleyway was in fact in the city of West Palm Beach. So government at your finest. And so here we're going forward with the abandonment. They refunded our money and we took that, paid our fees, and went into annexation process with the city of West Palm Beach. It's the only way that we can resolve the issue of our side setback for the awning, and therefore resolve our code enforcement issues. There were some other issues having to do with banners and flags we had up. We took all those off, and we were parking in the right of way. We resolved that issue. So really before you tonight is to look at the annexation as a way that we can save this family business and proceed through the development review process as prescribed by the city of West Palm Beach and leave Palm Beach County in the sunset. Let me see if I can, I don't know if I can pull up my PowerPoint, but you know, if this shows up, everybody can see that?
I'm not seeing it yet.
Okay. I pulled it up on my screen, but I'm not sure, like share.
We're not seeing any sharing going on.
Yeah, okay. Now I have to hit the sharing part. Okay.
Yeah, that's part of it. Another lesson we learned.
Yep. Share.
There you go.
Okay. Well, that's not a very good aerial. The one on your staff report is much better and is clearer to understand. But can you also see the little arrow I'm pointing?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because that's the subject property that we're looking to bring in. This is the property that's already in the city, the 20-foot alleyway. And this is Peggy Adams, Peggy Adams, and Peggy Adams, even on our west side. This shows, the next one, I get it right, shows that cutout of the city of West Palm Beach and this small family-owned business that was established in 1964, before even Palm Beach County had site plan requirements and the like. We can't find any records of it. It's just been there for over 50 years. This shows you this survey of our property, the extent of our property here being 0.17 acres, the 20-foot alleyway next to us, which will give us a grand total of 0.22 acres once we go through the abandonment process. Now, typically in the abandonment process, half the property is assigned to abutting property owners. We have worked it out with Peggy Adams where they don't need the 10 feet. We've worked out an in-kind contribution to them on a yearly basis in which they will sign off on the quitclaim that they don't have any interest in that 10 feet. That will result in us being able to meet the side setback for our awning that we constructed. Right here highlights the alleyway in green in tribute to tomorrow's St. Patrick's Day. And finally, the summary that's already in your staff report, but it's a developed property that's been an auto repair use since 1964. 3 sides contiguous to the city. The existing alleyway is in the city limits. We meet all the requirements of the Florida statutes for annexation. Palm Beach County has no objection to the annexation. And the FLU and the zoning designation requesting are commensurate with the cities in that area. And we've got confirmation from all agencies. And there's no expansion of the existing building. We're not coming into the city to find some favorable development regulations to enlarge it. We just can't. And staff has made us aware that they're going to hold our feet to the fire in terms of our site plan and some site improvements that they want from us to conform to their standards, and we've agreed with those. So that is our request before you. And
all right, thank you, sir. Are there any questions of the applicant? And if not, let me ask Mr. Roach if there's anyone from the public who wishes to be heard.
Don't have anyone from the public. I don't know if staff wants to make a presentation.
Okay, that was my next thing. I took that out of sequence, so thank you. Who from staff? Is it Ms. Lowy? Who's
That
gonna-
would be me.
Yes.
All right.
Just bear with me for a second. I'm just
Sure.
going to share my screen here. Okay, so
Kevin, you may need to stop sharing.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
that worked. Great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
okay. Okay, so can everyone see my screen?
We can.
Okay, just let me start the PowerPoint. Okay, good evening, everyone. Linda Louise, Senior Planner for the record. This is a 3-part request for a voluntary annexation, future land use map amendment, and rezoning. Since there are 3 applications, each application will need to be voted upon separately upon the conclusion of this agenda item. So just to quickly summarize, the subject property is located on the north side of 12th Street, approximately 200 feet east of North Military Trail. The property is 0.17 acres in size, and it's bounded by the Peggy Adams Animal Rescue Facility. So this area shaded in yellow represents the boundaries of the city of West Palm Beach, and the remaining properties surrounding the area is located in the unincorporated regions of Palm Beach County. So the land uses in the immediate area include commercial uses to the south as well as along Military Trail. And just a little further east, we have residential, which is characterized by single-family modular homes. So the first request is for the voluntary annexation, which is initiated by the property owner. The request has met the minimum criteria for the annexation. So as you can see in this map, the subject property does have contiguous boundaries to the city of West Palm Beach, and approval of the annexation would essentially eliminate this pocket enclave as well as even out the boundaries of the city in this particular area. So as Kevin has mentioned, the county did not object to the annexation request, and they have provided a letter as such, and that letter has been included in the staff report. The second request is for the future land use map amendment. This slide shows the current and proposed future land use designation of the property. So under statutory requirement, with the approval of the annexation, the subject property is also required to obtain a city future land use designation for consistency with the city's land use standards. So as you can see, the proposal here under the current is to change the existing future land use from county commercial high to city commercial future land use. In terms of the land use designation change, it is most similar to the existing future land use designation of the subject property. So it will maintain a sense of consistency as well as compatibility with the surrounding properties and uses in the area. Any request for future land use map amendment is also required to evaluate the impacts to the public facilities level of service. The level of service analysis is required by the state statute to determine if the land use change will negatively impact the provision of public services in the area. The level of service analysis is based on the maximum development potential of the subject property, which utilizes the floor area ratio, the maximum allowable floor area ratio. So as you can see in this table, the current county commercial high designation has a maximum FAR of 0.885. If the future land use amendment is approved, that will actually reduce the FAR to 0.75. So therefore, the proposed FLU designation decreases the maximum development potential by 822 square feet. So theoretically, that also means that the demand in services is expected to be reduced, and therefore no detrimental impacts to the level of service on the public facilities are expected with the land use change. Finally, the third request is for the rezoning. Again, this is for consistency with the future land use amendment request. It's a very straightforward request. The proposal is to change the current zoning from county general commercial to city general commercial. So it's, like I said, it's very straightforward. To conclude staff's presentation, staff is recommending approval of all three requests, as staff has found that the petitions complies with the Florida statutes, the city's comprehensive plan, as well as the city's zoning and land development regulations. And that concludes staff's presentation.
All right, thank you, Ms. Louie. Any questions of staff? And if not, let me go back, Mr. Roach, just to confirm with you that there are no one from the public wishes to be heard on this.
No, nobody has identified their desire.
Fair enough. All right, let's bring it back to the board. Let me pose the question. Does anyone have any concerns about this request? I'm seeing a lot of head shaking no, in which case I'll look for a motion.
Well, first we have to welcome him to West Palm Beach.
I was going to say, well, we haven't voted yet.
Yeah, we haven't voted yet.
Land, so more of our members can find homes in the city limits. We wouldn't have to replace so many. I'm looking for, I think we have three separate motions, so I'll look for the first motion.
Move approval, Mr. Chairman, of case number 1736, based on the findings that the petition meets the annexation requirements of Chapter 171 of the Florida statutes.
We have a motion. Have we a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Approval of case number 1736A, based on the findings that the amendment complies with the provisions of Chapter 163, Florida statutes, and the city comprehensive plan.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously.
And I'll move approval of case 1736B, based on the findings that the petition meets the required standards of Section 94-32 of the City of West Palm Beach's zoning and land development regulations.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. So now, on behalf of Mr. Pivko and I, we welcome you to the City of West Palm Beach.
Thank you, sir.
Well, we're just a recommendation, but we know what weight it carries on these things with the City Commission.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. All right, next on our agenda, I think, is a code revision case. Is that not true? Let me see what we got here. Code revision case number 1882. Do we have,
Everybody is in.
okay. Is there someone new who needs to be sworn in? Yes, I see a couple.
Yeah.
Will you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be truthful?
I do.
Thank you so much. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening. Ana Maria Ponte, Cedar Van Designer for the record. I hope this case will be actually much easier than the two previous cases. So
Well, that last one wasn't too bad, but yeah.
yes, that's true. So I'm going to start sharing my screen now. Can you see my screen?
We can.
Yep.
Perfect. So this is Planning Board Case 1882, a comprehensive plan amendment. A city-initiated request for a text amendment to the downtown master plan element of the comprehensive plan, modifying policy 2.4.2 and policy 3.1.3 in relation to the creation of a new housing incentive program for the downtown area.
Excuse me, Anna, can you go into slideshow mode?
Oh, sorry, I thought it was in the slideshow.
No.
Maybe sharing the other monitor,
Hmm.
same as what Joni was doing.
Well, let's go forward then.
Okay.
That's all right. Just go forward. We see enough of it
Okay, I don't know why it does it.
because you have two screens. Mr. Roach has taught us, and you're sharing the wrong one.
No? No?
I think we're better off before.
Oh, sorry.
We're not seeing it. Maybe Mr. Roach will guide you at this point.
That's what we're going to discuss at our staff meeting on Monday.
That'd be good. Okay,
No,
is this the right one?
It needs to be the slideshow.
it's still not, I'm sorry. I don't know why.
Why don't we just continue
Just
this?
go with that one, Anna. That's fine.
Okay.
It's just a little smaller.
That's all right. This fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, so in recent years, the city has been discussing the availability of housing for families earning the area median income that for Palm Beach County is $79,100. In particular, we have had several discussions about housing for those working downtown. And the reason has been is because as we see the employment base growing downtown and availability for housing in downtown increase, we have not seen the housing for families within the area median income to increase. The housing cost for downtown is rather high, and the lack of housing for those working in the downtown force them to basically live outside and commute to the downtown, increasing the creating traffic congestion within the downtown area. The staff has conducted some analysis lately of what is the market price for rental units in the downtown, and this information is based on basically information collected last month by staff for the websites of the kind of the professionally managed rental buildings in the downtown. So we found that the price for market rate units goes, for example, for the studio is $1,686 and goes to $3,063 for a 2-bedroom unit. So when we compare these with the prices that are the maximum rent that is affordable for families earning between 60 and 100% of the AMI in the county, we see a substantial gap. So you can see in the table on the bottom of your screen that for a studio, for example, the maximum rent price that a family could pay within the 100% of the AMI, it will be $1,538. And that is kind of a gap between the market rate and the affordable price for the families. And the studio is kind of the smallest gap. As you go larger in the size of the units, the 2-bedroom, the gap between those two prices actually increases substantial, making it basically very difficult for a working family to have a unit within the downtown area, so they don't need to commute to their work if they work in any of the offices in downtown. The city has an existing affordable housing program. It's a special program that provides basically additional development capacity through the use of the TDRs to developers that provide units within 50 to 150 of the AMI. For those developers, the city offers to give them the city-owned TDRs so they don't have to purchase the TDRs in the private market, the TDRs necessary to increase their development capacity in the private market. So that's kind of an incentive for them. With this incentive program, we have had 3 projects. Only one has been completed, is the Evernia Place project that is located on Sapodilla and Evernia. And that project produced 85 units, all below 80% of the AMI. We have recently 2 projects that have been approved already, and one is under construction, the Flagler Station project that is located on Tamarin, on the corner of Tamarin Avenue and Banyan Boulevard. This is a 94-unit project, which will have also all of the units below 80% of the AMI. The Flagler Station and the Evernia Place project, they're both projects that receive the TDRs from the city, but in addition, they are projects that receive special incentives from the state through the tax credit project, and that's why all the units are lower income level. The third project that is finalizing the approval, and we hope it's going to start construction pretty soon, is the Grand project. That is a new residential project that is proposed on Rosemary Avenue between 2nd Street and 3rd Street in the Northwest neighborhood. The project is 309 units, and from that project, 103 units are 100% below 100% of the AMI. and other units are 120 and above. This project also received the TDRs for free from the city to allow the increase of development capacity and receive additional incentives from the city and the CRA. So if you see, looking at these numbers, only 85 units have been built at this point since 2006, from the total of 3,397 units that have been built in the downtown since 2006. So that is only 2.5% of the total units that are for families below 80% of the AMI. So considering that the offer of units below the 100% of AMI has been very limited, even though we have the affordable housing incentive program that the city has in place, the city has decided to expand the program and promote the construction of more mixed income residential buildings. We have been working with the HCD department to draft a more comprehensive program that basically will allow developers that are proposing residential projects to increase its development capacity and height in exchange for providing 33% of the area of the incentive for families, for units for families with income between 60 and 100% of the AMI. The program will utilize the same system that is used right now for any other incentives in the downtown. So it's the TDR program. They will have to, in this case, they have to purchase the development capacity in the private market and bring it to the site, but they will be able to increase from the above, from the by right development capacity. We are certainly working on maybe some options. They could build the units on site. They could also build the units off-site as long as they are in a project within the downtown area. Or they could also have, we're drafting a buyout option. As I said, the program details are in the process right now and will be brought in front of the planning board and the Downtown Action Committee and the City Commission for approval in the next months. So what you are seeing today is basically the comprehensive plan amendments that need to take place, to achieve this proposed housing incentive program. So we have two amendments that we are proposing to the comprehensive plan. The first one is update of policy 2.4.2. That currently that policy states that the city shall promote the creation of affordable and workforce housing through the establishment of incentive programs, such as, but not limited to, the existing affordable housing incentive program. So what we are just proposing for this amendment is to simplify the policy and remove any reference to a particular program. So we can then afterwards name the programs any way we want without being any conflict with the comprehensive plan. So this is more like a house cleaning item. The major amendment that we are proposing is the update of policy 3.1.3, that this policy is the one that identify additional areas of the downtown that are eligible to receive incentives and increase its by right development capacity and height to a maximum established. So in this case, there are two particular elements that we are proposing for amendment. One is the table DMP1, that is the table that lists the maximum development capacity for each of the sub-districts. And then the figure DMP-3, that is the map that shows which areas are eligible to receive incentives. So as I said before, so this is DMP table 1 that includes the maximum development capacity, and we are proposing additional areas that are to become eligible for incentives. So one is the cultural art districts that we are increasing the FAR for incentives and the height, the Ecuador business district that had already an incentive, but we are slightly increasing the maximum development capacity and the height also. Then the transit-oriented development district, also increasing slightly the FAR and the height, and one additional area within the Clematis waterfront district that is where the Banyan parking garage is located right now, that the city is working on a possible redevelopment of that site to kind of maximize its prime location. This is the figure DMP3, that is the incentive areas that shows all these areas on the map that you see on the left of your screen are all the areas of the downtown that are identified as eligible for incentives. And then the map on the right is a proposed change. So you can see the bulk of the changes is basically adding the area on the TOD district that is between the two train stations as eligible for incentives. And this is to basically, as the pressure in the downtown, the sites get developed and more pressure and the sites get more scarce, we're trying to maximize those areas that where additional development capacity can go and new buildings could build. And this location is prime because it's located between the two main transportation systems that we have in the downtown and will be perfect for affordable housing. So we are indicating those areas on the map, and you see like they represent the districts that I show on the table, TOD 10 to 12, TOD 8 to 12, and all the designations that are created. And then this other circle represents the location of the Banyan parking garage, how we are allowing that site also to be eligible for additional development capacity and height. Other areas already designated for incentives could also utilize the new housing program. This is just to indicate these additional areas, but at the end of the day, all the areas that are on the map and will be also indicated on figure 435 of the zoning and land development regulations that are eligible to receive TDRs will be basically eligible to apply and utilize the housing incentive program that is under draft. As I say, the additional development capacity will be obtained through the use of the TDR program. So no additional development capacity will be added to the overall downtown. It will be transferred from historic buildings or new public open spaces to these new sites. It's basically the presentation. Staff recommends approval for the planning board case number 1882 based on the findings that the data and analysis presented in this staff report and based on the finding that the amendment meets the requirements of chapter 163 Florida statutes and it is consistent with the other elements of the city's comprehensive plan. The amendments were presented to the Downtown Action Committee last week, March 10, and they approved it unanimously. After planning board, we will present the amendment to the city commission for first reading and transmittal hearing on April 19, 2021. Then we will send the proposed amendments to the Department of Economic Opportunities for their review. And while DEO conducts the review, staff will work on finalizing the details of the program that will be the amendments to the zoning and land development regulations. So the intention is to present those amendments to DAC and Planning Board in May and have first reading in June. So when the DEO approves the amendments and we are ready for second reading of the comprehensive plan, we will bring at the same time the second reading of the proposed zoning and land development regulations so they can be approved concurrently. That concludes the staff presentation and I'm ready to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions of staff? And you can stop your sharing if you don't mind for a moment so we can see everyone. Thank you. Any questions of staff? Go ahead, Peter.
First of all, I wanted to start by lauding the city's effort to develop affordable housing. I think it's a very innovative approach. The only issue I have is regarding the Banyan Garage. You know, the restaurants and all of the businesses downtown rely on ease of parking. If you're going to take the Banyan Garage out of the formula for downtown parking, I personally think it will have a major impact. In terms of
Rick Green shaking his head no. So I don't think that's the plan.
Okay.
Peter, yeah, I'll mention that quite the contrary. We have been discussing for some time with the CRA maybe some form of public-private partnership whereby we would retain the amount of parking that's in that garage now, but possibly increase the height of that space, and then possibly line the bottom floors with either retail or residential use, have a use like a YMCA or something, a gym at that location, possibly have a level top floor where you would have events that could take place on the 8th or 10th floor. But the desire was always, I think it's a little over 400 spaces in that garage. Yeah. We would retain the 400 spaces, but then maybe add some additional uses to it.
I feel better.
Yeah, the idea is certainly not to eliminate the parking because we know it's necessary. Yep.
Yeah. That
All
was
right,
it.
any other questions? Go ahead, Rick.
I was just going to emphasize, as Anna mentioned in her last slide, these are the comprehensive plan changes. You will see the actual details of the program when we come back in May. But just like in the past where we've offered incentives for Class A office space, full service hotels, this is yet another incentive that we're going to offer for downtown because this is what we think is desperately needed.
Okay, any other questions of staff? Mr. Roach, does anyone from the public wish to be heard on this?
Mr. Chair, no one's expressed interest in commenting.
Well, I just want to echo the comments that Peter made. I think this is a wonderful effort the city's making, very strategic in its thinking. I think with a good chance for success. Does anyone have any concerns or objections to this request? And if not, I'll look for a motion for approval. And look and look and keep looking. Your mute's on, Peter. Thank you.
I'm looking for the, I have to look at my report. I have to go back up to the top here. I'll move approval of planning board case number 1882.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We'll see you back in May with all the details.
That's wonderful. Next on our agenda was going to be the election of a new vice chair. I'm comfortable moving forward, or if you want to delay it a month, but we will have more people here. What's the desire of the board members present?
I would nominate Peter Pivko.
Oh, there we go. Let's not waste time. Any other nominations?
I'll second
Wait a
it.
second. We didn't discuss salary yet.
Wait, we just did. All right, we have a motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of Mr. Pivko being our new vice chair, signify by
Thank you.
saying aye.
Aye.
Can I
you,
note
everybody.
can I note I abstained? I'm just teasing. All right. Congratulations, Mr. Pivko.
Thank you.
All right, then do we have any other business, unfinished business?
No,
If not, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
thank you.
Thank you all.